Howdy, folks. It's Eugene. I am the Dungeon Master for the Long Strange Cantrips March of Progress campaign, and this is another recap video for our latest session, Session 4. Now, you can follow the Long Strange Cantrip on Twitch at twitch.tv/longstrangecantrip to catch up with our sessions live as they happen, which we would most appreciate, and also get clips and other content like gameplay and DM prep. You can also subscribe to this channel, which I would really urge you to do, where you can find recaps like this, as well as DM notes for past sessions, highlights, and various other things like that. We just finished up our first adventure, about which I am very excited. The characters are going to level up, we will advance, and move on with our very compelling so far, in my opinion, story. So please do go to twitch.tv/longstrangecantrip to follow us there, join in on the sessions, and subscribe here on Twitch so that you can get all the latest. I'd also urge you to join our Discord server, which you can find at a link below. There you can contribute to the story by suggesting NPCs to interact with the characters. And you can also, of course, chat along as the adventure is happening live, and generally just catch up with other people in the community and the players and me. It's a great time. We'd love to have you there. So again, twitch.tv/longstrangecantrip, Discord below, YouTube channel, you're on it. You should already know what that is. And with that, we're ready to begin the recap for Session 4, which we will call To the Lighthouse. So we began with the party resting in the sea cave, in which they had just fought a Denoran holdout miner, apparently empowered by some recovered artifacts, which gave him the power to command minor beings of shadow and earth energy. So he's a miner like pickaxe miner, and these beings are minor like less than greater. Ume and Ekthos took their rest period to study the symbols that they found from the mining foreman. One turned out to be a symbol of Urim, an entity symbolizing the power of stone and earth, and the other was a symbol of Nem, the furtive stag, symbolizing shadow and darkness. These grant the wearer enticing powers, especially when standing on Axis Island. They seem most powerful in this location. Meanwhile, Dipnip approached the marble obelisk standing in the center of the cave, and gingerly, with the use of his psionic powers, pulled a third symbol from the obelisk. This turned out to be a symbol of Avalona, an aquiline creature which typically symbolizes the power of the wind and the skies, and the party debated about the most fashionable way to don these items, which evolved, or maybe devolved, into a bit of an assessment of the changing tides of fashion across Dipnip's infinite lifetimes, as well as his predictions for future fashions, which he said, little hats for men, big hats for women. Once the accessorizing was determined, the party resolved to leave the sea cave and ascend to the island's surface. There, they were met by suffocating temperatures and cacophonous insects and birds. For most, this environment was unlike anything that they had really ever experienced. Constant, incessant buzzing, teeming with life, and most of all, super hot and sweaty. Ekthos created a hawk simulacrum to survey the land, and after sensing that there were relatively few patrols of Denoran rebels, at least that's who they thought they were, the party determined to follow the roads to their destination, which was the fort where Duchess Ethelyn was holed up. In the meantime, they examined the pass wall scroll, which they recovered from the Fox Team 4, RIP. This gave the party a reasonable sense of the fort's layout, as well as the place where the pass wall spell should be cast, or at least where the Fox Team 4 intended to use it in order to pass into the fortress. Then they set off, following the roads along the path of least resistance for the most part, taking in the sights and sounds of this dense jungle island. They found little respite among the canopy shade, but with sure footing and Dipnip's conjured psionic cane and his psionic crocs, basically, they made steady progress. Before long, however, each of them was struck by this stunning vision. For a few seconds, they were transported to an alien landscape, similar yet with a completely different color palette and appearance. They saw purple trees, neon frogs, and this bright blue sun setting in the sky. Just as quickly, they snapped back to reality, their brains having had the experience of a piece of rubber being pulled, taut, and then released. It was somewhat relieving to know that each of them had experienced the same thing, though it did seem more than a mere hallucination. Each of them seemed to be drenched, as if they had really stood in the swamp water that covered this imagined world. The party theorized that this could be a vision which precipitates the kinds of seismic events which had killed the Fox Team 4 and put the party in their place. Since the dying member of the Fox Team 4 seemed to have experienced a similar vision. But with little left to do, they moved on. Just as their legs were beginning to fatigue from the ascent up the coastal mountains, they came to a bridge which served as the quickest way across a chasm and toward their destination. Unfortunately, just on the other side, approached a group of patrolling soldiers of seemingly Risuri origin. The group had diverging plans about how to tackle the situation, from hiding to robotic distraction to everything in between. But their hand was forced in the end by the opposing group's movements. Ultimately, Egberticus and Brachus decided to wait until the patrol was on the bridge and then attempted to suss out their loyalty, whether it was to the king or to the duchess. The patrol cannily answered that their loyalty was to the kingdom of Risur, and Egberticus, in turn, cannily said, well, that's not good enough. Is it to the duchess or to the king? Not liking their answer, Brachus took one miraculous, aka 20 on the d20, swing of his axe and severed both of the cords which held the bridge in place, sending the patrol toppling to their doom. Ekthos then used his simulacra and his mending spell and general sort of engineering ability to restore the bridge to more or less working order. And they crossed without much trouble, but for some bouts with acrophobia. The march gave us some really illuminating glimpses into Dipnip and Brachus's professional relationship, let's call it, as well as the general sort of physical hardiness or lack thereof of the group. Some really seemed to be struggling in this environment. As the group continued on, drawing nearer to the fort and the fortifying sea breeze, giving some relief to the muggy and still air, some of their number began to hear a disquieting pulse from a small clearing in the jungle. Ume climbed a tree to get a better vantage and spied a large, imposing metal automaton, seemingly missing its head. Dipnip used his new acquisition, the symbol of Avalona, to cast Jump, perching up in the tree himself, kind of sitting on top of it, crouching tiger, hidden dragon style, to get a better look, but he couldn't discern the creature's origin, like whether it was historic or novel. But he seemed to note that it was leaking witch oil. He hypothesized that this witch oil exposure might have caused their hallucinations. And at the very least, it's something that should be remedied somehow. Ekthos also felt that it couldn't go unfixed, and despite the fact that the automaton seemed to be swinging powerfully around and felling trees, albeit blindly, aiming at everything in its presence, Ekthos sent Mekthos, a homunculus which he had just created, to do the deed. Unfortunately, the machine heard Mekthos' advance and swung mightily, smashing Mekthos to bits. With this, the group thought best of their plan to fix the machine and sort of skirted this big automaton, and Brachus's lack of bedside manner really became apparent as he kept asking about and referring to the destroyed homunculus which Ekthos had so carefully engineered. By early evening, the party arrived at the fort. They determined that it would be best to cast pass wall at the spot marked on their map because of the lack of potential interference from security and wards and different alchemical implements. Remember, in this world, gold is a inhibitor to teleportation power and potentially pass wall. Ekthos first created this automaton, the spider Arachthos. He's very good at branding, to scout along the fort's outer walls and parapets. And they discovered that the fort was being manned by a real skeleton crew of the Duchess's rebel men. After casting pass wall and entering the fort, the party decided it would be best to head straight for the seawall, which held a lighthouse at the end of it, or at its base rather, and avoid other opportunities for detection. Nonetheless, they didn't do great on their stealth approach and stealth checks, and Ekthos in particular was very nervous and sort of didn't know where to put his hands and speak normally, and this put some of the fort's guards on higher alert. At the seawall, the party smooth or semi-smooth talked their way into the lighthouse, with Dipnip prepared to explain the more visually exceptional, as he put it, members of the party: Brachus, a minotaur; Ecberticus, a Bari, a walrus-looking figure, and why they were there. They pretended to be a maintenance crew, employing liberal jargon and technobabble to confuse the guards, albeit Brachus's short temper did lead to one of the guards being force-fed a cookie, one of Ecberticus's famous cookies, to which it was clear that he was allergic. Not sure whether the party's explanations about ghosts running the machines, smelly ghosts, were fully understood by the guards or believed by the guards, but the guards were unwilling to take a chance at any rate. These seemed to be engineers with the full blessing of the Duchess. Once in the lighthouse, the party's plan was set in motion. They were being watched by the lighthouse keeper and his attendant, but in one fell swoop, Ekthos put a fairy fire grenade in his automaton hawk's hands and threw it out the window, then pulled the switch to open the seawall. This, of course, alerted the far-off Missouri Navy, but also the fortress guards. So the party then had to deal with the immediate threat in the lighthouse in the form of the spellcaster, his pseudo-dragon, and several able guards. But then they faced off against wave after wave of fortress guards in a sort of tactical encounter, using barricades, magical wards, even a mechanical snake from Ekthos, Ume's newly acquired stonewall power. So they did manage to make it through that encounter, in which Dipnip cleverly disarmed the seawall controls such that even if they were stopped or captured, the seawall would continue opening. Their mission would be completed. But as I said, that did not end up coming to pass. Their capture didn't, I should say, because they managed to hold off the forces for the 10 minutes or so that it took the wall to open, the Risuri fleet to come in, and before long the fleet's gangplanks hit the seawall cobblestones, and the vastly superior forces of the Risuri Navy beat back the rebels. Captain Smith strutted down from the RNS Impossible bridge to meet the heroes, congratulating them with cigars that they couldn't smoke until after retaking the fort. He thanked them for their help in this mission, of course, and preemptively for their help in the ensuing battle, and told them that it was their charge at this point to be in the lead for all non-military aspects of this engagement, including, of course, the diplomatic dealings with the Duchess. As the party took a much-needed breather, the Risuri Navy continued to make progress on breaching the harbor walls, and with that, the session was over, but for the appearance of a strange and menacing figure who hopped up onto the deck of one of the Risuri ships, used some sort of flaming sword or whip or both to cut through the Risuri soldiers there, bounded from ship to ship at impossible distances to the harbor, and then leaped over the wall. Nobody could quite tell who that figure was, but certainly they found out in the next session. So that's it. That is the synopsis of our fourth session together. I thought it went great. There were a lot of different beats and encounters that the party made it through, and in the process really showed their personalities and tendencies and proclivities. So with that, I'll be saying farewell. Please do subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these videos. Certainly go on twitch.tv/longstrangecantrip and follow us there to watch our adventures live. Join us on the Discord, like our videos, etc., etc. Until next time, this is Eugene, DM for the March of Progress campaign. May your rolls be 20s and your misses be few.